On the surface, this new moon in Taurus feels simple, comfortable, and easy. But brimming underneath the surface of this new moon is a potential for massive transformation, especially as it comes to our sense of expression. Now, most of us think that we're afraid to be seen in our expression, but what I think we're actually really afraid of is being seen authentically and still being misunderstood, still being rejected, still being dismissed. We've all had these situations in our lives where we say something authentic, something deep within our heart, something that is vulnerable, and it gets dismissed. Or worse, it gets used as a weapon against you. This new moon is conjunct Mercury in Taurus, and it's conjunct Algol. Algol is the eye of Medusa. This is the woman who was punished, not for anything that she did, but for things that she represented. Mercury is about expression, and the ruler of this new moon in Taurus is out of bounds. It is a rebellious, wild Venus that we are dealing with. In Gemini, a sign of expression, communication, perception. We'll go through this more deeply, but if I had to think about what this potential transformation is, it is really about you becoming more you, but not just within yourself, within expression to others, whether that's within a relationship to relationships. This is about becoming more fully expressed. But that also means it's bringing up all of the fears, all of the projections, all of the shadows, the judgments, the attacks that often happen when we fully and authentically express ourselves. Before we get super deep into everything, let's go over some of the basics. This new moon is happening at 25 degrees of Taurus, May 16th at 2 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Conjunct Algol, conjunct Mercury in Taurus. Moon's ruler is Venus. As I mentioned, she is out of bounds, which means she is wild, she is exaggerated, she is out of the control of the sun. We have a Mars Chiron conjunction in Aries exact to the minute on this new moon. And this is happening in human design gate 8 and gene key 8. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. The gene key goes from the shadow of mediocrity to the gift of style. So I'm in my emerald green for Taurus. This is also the stone or the color as well for May birthdays, which I am a May birthday. So I'm feeling very Taurian. What does that even mean? What does Taurus represent? Taurus is embodiment, it's pleasure, it's values. When I think of Taurus, I think of quiet luxury of tactile sensations, wearing clothes that feel good to be in rather than they just look super fancy. There is something about Taurus that invites us to honor and value the self, right? This is the second house naturally versus the eighth house, which is about other people, right? And how our values and how other people value us. This is about how we value ourselves, how we take care of ourselves, how we invest in ourselves. Whenever we have a new moon, we're starting a new 6-month process in this part of our chart. So something here is asking you to take care of yourself, to invest in yourself, to build something for yourself, for your own values. It's asking you, what are your values in this part of your chart? Now, this full moon in Scorpio asked us to excavate some old stories that kept you small and silent. This new moon in Taurus is going to ask you to rewrite those stories. So I want you to think about where you had that full moon in Scorpio, what stories you released, and what house that's in. And now this new moon in Taurus, what house is this in? And what story are you rebuilding based off of what you released? They're really playing in tandem here because this month is so much about expression, as I mentioned in my May 2026 video that I did. And also what binds us, what keeps us from expressing, right? And this is Pluto. This is the underworld energy. This is a very practical sign. And what I feel like is coming through right now is very practical energy as well. Meaning, we had this new moon in Aries. We had all of this Aries energy in April. And now we moved into May and This is stabilizing something, but it's asking you to move forward in a way that's easy, right? This is Taurus, this is Venus. Let it be easy for your system. Let it be comfortable. I think of Wu Wei, right? This idea of effortless action, moving, but moving with a sense of softness, with surrender. Taurus is fixed earth. It's slow, it's steady. Taurus builds over time. I have Taurus in my 10th house with Mercury on my midheaven. And I always say, like, people will say things to me like, oh, what are you going to do this? Like, are you optimizing growth? And as I've said, like, growth for growth's sake is the way the Cancer cell thinks. And Taurus reminds us that we don't just grow for no reason. We grow and we stabilize. And this is coming up in this decan specifically when we go through the tarot card for this decan, which is the Seven of Pentacles, which is ruled by Saturn. So this is about boundaries as well, because Saturn reminds us of our boundaries, right? He is the planet that separates the seen planets from the unseen planets. Here, we're being asked to recognize the boundaries of our own growth, the restraints, and to use those restraints to move forward in a new, innovative, mutative way. All right, let's take a look at the charts here. Here we have 25 degrees of Taurus, where we have this new moon conjunct Algol, as you can see. Now, if you have anything around 22 to 28 degrees of Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, you guys are going to be feeling this the most, because this is going to be squaring, conjuncting, opposing your sign. We're all going to feel it in a certain way, but if you have anything in those placements, you're going to get a lot of intensity from this new moon, potentially, right? Because that's the thing about this new moon. That's the thing about all lunations, all transits, they all carry potential. And it's up to us to create something from that potential. And how we create it becomes our authentic expression, our service to the world. So we've got that. We've got Mercury here now. What's interesting about this is that just a few days before this new moon, this is the chart for the new moon, we have a Mercury cazimi in Taurus. So the Mercury is being purified by the rays of the sun. So in the days leading up to this new moon, there might be some realizations, conversations that really like hit, something gets revealed, something is realized, right? And man, you guys, the past like week, I have been moving through so much energy regarding like feminine rage, feminine wisdom, feminine relationships, female relationships, and how they show up in the world. And as an emotional projector, I do love taking time, and I really need to take time to integrate some of these energies before I show up here and talk about them. Usually leading up to a new moon, we've got a very dark moon. There's not a bunch of realizations, right? This is not like a full moon, but because we've got this Mercury cazimi, it is kind of giving us an energy that around this time, you may be illuminating something. Something may come through conversations in the mind, through meditation, something like that, about values, about pleasure, about something that is of practical value in your life. So we've got that going on. We also, I'm not going to go super deep into this. I talked about this in May 2026 video, but we also have the nodal shift change that is happening. Nodal shift change, nodal axis shift that is happening on the 14th as well. So that is huge, but I talked about it more in my May 2026 video. Now, the ruler of this moon is Venus. She is in Gemini, where she likes to articulate, where she likes to conversate, she likes to be perceptive, she likes to move. She's out of bounds. When planets are in bounds, it's not that they're normal, but they're working within a certain convention. When they're out of bounds, they become more rebellious, they become more unruly, they become more exaggerated to both extremes, right? Let me know if you have a out of bounds planet in your chart. I've got it out of bounds moon and Venus. It brings a feral quality a little bit, right? These planets don't like to work within the conventions of society regarding that planet theme. So This is why, on the surface, you're like, oh, Taurus, it's pleasure and simplicity, all these things. Yes, but the ruler is out of bounds in Gemini, right? We've got this Algol conjunction, one of the most misunderstood fixed stars in astrology, Algol, the eye of Medusa. And then we've got this Mars Chiron conjunction, which is really bringing up wounds around being, starting, doing, going after our desires. Mars and Venus both have to do with pleasure, but Venus is the pleasure principle, and Mars is how we go about achieving that pleasure. We have in our society a very interesting relationship with pleasure because most of us either don't feel comfortable with pleasure, don't feel comfortable with receiving, with the femininity of reception. And others of us may, and that may be for multiple reasons, right? It could be because we just don't feel like we're worthy. But it could also be that in the past, maybe we've had addictions and we've been made to believe that pleasure is not safe in our bodies. Bringing pleasure into our lives can be really helpful. And with my clients, I do this in really small ways, right? You don't want to overwhelm and be like, just go out and just have the most fun ever. It's like, how can you just touch your arm? Notice the warmth, right? How can you sit and smell this candle? And just really for not even 5 minutes, 1 minute, just notice the smell, how it feels as it goes in. It's like these small things that we do to help so that our nervous system has the capacity to accept pleasure in small doses and eventually increase that capacity over time. Yeah, let's go, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you look at this chart, it's like it's not really doing a lot. That's why I feel like it's going to feel quieter, but it's something is really, really changing underneath the surface. Now let's look at the human design. This is happening in gate 8 in human design. Mercury is also in gate 8. The ruler is in gate 12. Now, gate 8 is a gate of contribution. It sits in the throat center. As I mentioned in the May 2026 video, we've got a lot of throat center gates activated this month, which is about expression. So when gate 8 is activated, this is individual expression. This is an individual gate, meaning that it's about mutation, it's about the self, right? And we just had the nodes moving into individual energy as well. So a lot of individual energy coming through here, which is about the individual and the ability for you to be fully you, to defy the systems, the stories that have kept you small. And a lot of those may have been self-imposed prisons. This is what we learn as we start to really do the shadow work. It's not about blame, but it's about responsibility. So gate 8 of contribution, going from the gene key of mediocrity into the gift of style, really shows us this is a time for us to get into style. And style is not just about how you show up physically and what you wear. It's about the way you move, right? It's the way you say something in a way that nobody else can say it. One of the things, I'm doing my program right now, Creative Rewilding. It's so great to be in a space with creatives and seeing that we often struggle with such similar things. And one of the things that comes up a lot is, well, everything's been said. Like everyone, who needs to hear me? And there's a lot of people who need to hear it the way that you would say it, with the frequency that you would say it in. Your frequency, your language, your words will go to the people who need it. And they will also go to people who don't need it. Let's talk a little bit about this. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about Medusa. I want to talk about Algol, okay? And these all kind of tie into a very similar thing, right? Gate 8 is about authentic contribution, individual expression. Venus out of balance about the same thing. This new moon conjunct Mercury about expression. And then you've got Algol. Algol is the eye of Medusa. Medusa was a beautiful priestess of Athena's temple. She sought refuge with Athena in Athena's temple. Now, if you enter Athena's temple, you become a priestess there, you have to take a vow of virginity, which she did. Now, Poseidon was Neptune, as we may know him here, was taken by her beauty and violated Medusa on the steps of the temple. Now, when Athena found out about this, instead of holding and taking care of Medusa, she made her extremely ugly, turned her hair into a head of snakes, and gave her the ability to turn people into stone with her gaze. So there's something here about betrayal. There's something here about punishment when somebody is violated. She was betrayed by a man and then a woman. I always tell my partner, like, I struggle sometimes because sometimes I want to talk about this, how women have been hurt and all these things. And I don't want men to think that I'm like anti-men. And he told me, he's like, the like real men won't think that. I don't fall into this duality of like men versus women, patriarchy versus matriarchy, because there's shadows everywhere. And I will say there's a part of me as a woman who has been hurt by men and women, has been violated by men and women in different ways. I almost expect it from men. It's like they don't get it. They don't know. And historically, all these things, but part of me like doesn't expect it from women. And I think it hurts a different way when women like WW violence, because not just hurting, right? Like we all are going to hurt each other. Like we do the best not to, but it's just inevitable that we're going to hurt people. But like attacking or punishing. The world is a patriarchy, yes, but it's operating from the shadow of a patriarchy. So what's happening there is that this world has become deeply uncomfortable with that which it cannot control. So we often think like when we think of patriarchy, we think of men hurting women. And it's like, no, there are women who work on behalf of the patriarchy in its shadow as well. And that almost makes me more sad, you know? And I think it's something for us to look at within all of ourselves, like how we enforce these rules that we've been conditioned to believe, which is like number one, that the feminine is controllable. When we think about the masculine, the patriarchy, it is always trying to put things in boxes to make them more controllable and easily defined and understandable. And the feminine is not here to be understood, right? Venus is about creativity. Venus is about art. And art is subjective. And subjectivity is where the beauty of art lies, in the sense that the beauty is in what is not said. The beauty is in what is misunderstood by some people. And we have to leave room for that. I remember I took an herbalism course. And in the course, the teacher said, we don't have like a certifying body in herbalism, and people think we want it. And she's like, most of us don't want that, because once again, there is this like herbalism. It's like, who are we to certify that? Who are we to certify somatic work? Who are we to certify energetic wisdom, serpent wisdom, right? I talk about serpent wisdom being Scorpio energy. I put disclaimers everywhere because I understand there's a reality that we live in, right? Which is that, yeah, people will, you say something and people will take that and say, you told me to do it. And so we have to adjust to reality, but also there's a part of me that's always felt very uncomfortable with this idea that everything needs to be certified. Everything needs to be boxed in and understood. It's like, that's not how the feminine works. That's not how oracular messages work. That's not how this wisdom that flows through all of us, that is available to all of us, works. And when we enforce that kind of energy in our own lives, right? Because this is something that comes up a lot too with people. They're like, well, I just don't know enough. And what if someone says, you don't know this? And it's like, let them think that you don't know this, right? Because you don't have the letters after your name. I talked about this in my in my video about what's changing in 2027. I'll have it linked down below about changing from line 1 to line 6, moving from this energy of like credentials and uh, understanding and, you know, titles into embodied wisdom. So I want to read a little bit about Richard Rudd. Let's see what he says about gate 8 or gene key 8. Okay. So he says this about the shadow here. He says, beyond the comfort zone. When you look at the world in which we live today, especially the Western world, it is quite extraordinary how many people live such similar lives. The eighth shadow, like all the shadow frequencies, is founded upon a specific fear. And in this case, it is the fear of being different. The true nature of individuality is rebellion, but rebellion is unsafe. So the mass consciousness of humanity chooses the illusion of security instead. He says one of the deep emerging fears from the eighth gene key is the fear of success. You compromise your dreams not because you fear you will fail, but because you know that to succeed, you will have to rebel against the whole of society and its expectations of you. You fear what you might become because you do not know who you are. And this energy to me is like, this is what keeps us in the shadow. This idea that, you know, we have to live life based on the expectations of society. I talk to people all the time and I get it. I get it. We are so indoctrinated in this. And yet we end up leading mediocre lives, not on the outside, not talking about the outside, but the inside, how it feels to you, how you experience this life. And it requires to step out of your comfort zone. Before I started doing this work, I was going to go back to school to become a therapist. My dream when I was a kid for a long time, I would watch Law and Order SVU and the forensic psychiatrist there. I was like, oh my God, I just want to be him. And when I got into school and I got my autoimmune disorders and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to the system. When I healed my autoimmune disorders, I wanted to help other people because I did it on my own. And this was 2012, right? The internet wasn't what it is. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I was like, I need to gain a status that people will trust. So I chose pharmacy because I was like, well, it's 4 years and I can tell people like, oh, trust me, I understand medications and they're not going to be the things that heal you, because I didn't trust in my own embodied wisdom at that point. I was 21. So when I wanted to go back to school to become a therapist, I had to get very real with myself about why I wanted to go back. And it was because I wanted those letters, not because I genuinely wanted to learn, because I don't like the current system. I don't like the current psychological system. I want to rebel against it. And if that means that I have to do this in a way that feels really uncomfortable to me, then I have to do it. Trust yourself, trust your individual expression. He says one of the functions of mediocrity is to serve the machinery of society rather than evolution. In other words, you become a cog in the wheel of the systems established by man. It makes you a follower of outside authorities. It even marries you to systems that then become your authorities. It traps you in its twists and turns and prevents you from being a free thinker, someone who can see beyond the current structures imposed by life. It is a person who lives for the spontaneity of his or her own creativity. Free thinkers also live freely. It is not enough to think freely. We must live freely. One of my favorite quotes, and I'm just going to pull it up here so I don't butcher it. Albert Camus said, "The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion." I made a decision that was what I wanted deeply. And I know that on a practical level, Taurus, this seems very difficult. Once again, we fall into the trap of the illusion of security. The eighth gift of style, he says, is a rebel with a cause. To find your own style is to be yourself without concern about what others may think. This gift does not sit happily within society. Style is more than skin deep. Yes, style is dangerous to society and its logical structure, system-based thinking, and infrastructure. It is dangerous because it mimics nature, right? Feminine, which so many systems try to control and explain. Like nature, style is given shape by a wild, organic, and unpredictable energy. So much of my life, this is very personal for me. So much of my life, I have tried to fit in, to make my expression more acceptable as a out of bounds moon, Venus, unaspected moon in Sagittarius, conjunct Lilith. I've always been told, like, don't act like that. I was having a conversation with an old friend who's like, family in a lot of ways to me. And we had this conversation about scenario back 20 years ago almost. And as she was explaining her perception of me, it was jarring. It was jarring. I was like, wow, I completely reject these characterizations of me. And in that moment, I did say, well, hold on, like just because it seemed like that on the outside doesn't mean that that's what was happening on the inside or whatever. But then I realized that there was a point in me that I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't matter that she thinks that of me. Not in a way of just like surrendering and self-resignation. It was just like she can think that because it's just not true. And it wasn't even tinged with animosity. And I woke up the next morning, I was like, this is why I wasn't able to make the Taurus New Moon video. Because I needed to go through this. Because everything else that had happened throughout the week felt a lot more charged. And it's such a journey of being misunderstood. It's such a journey of putting work out there or putting yourself out there and having it be misunderstood again and again. And it's just a journey. Like I told people in Creative Wilding, I'm like, I reserve the right to have a completely different opinion on this next year, because I'm going to grow and change. This is what Gemini teaches us, by the way. It's annoying in some ways, right? It's kind of inconsistent, and the shadow of it can be extremely inconsistent, constantly changing their minds. But Taurus brings that energy kind of down, right? I'm very grateful for my Mercury in Taurus as a Gemini sun. I've got my little Gemini sun necklace on because it really does slow things down quite a bit. And I'm very, very grateful. But this is the thing, becoming fully expressed brings up all of these fears of judgment, of attack, of being misunderstood, of being rejected from your friends, right? All of these stories, Plutonian stories that are coming up as Pluto goes retrograde after we have this full moon in Scorpio is like feeling this fear on such a deep level of like, I won't be accepted. But you have been rejecting yourself this whole time to be accepted by everybody else. I get this. I get this to such a deep level, which is why I created Creative Rewilding, right? And this is honestly why I'm for Inner Revolution Immersion. They both have waitlists, by the way. They're not active right now for enrollment, but they have waitlists on my website. Inner Revolution Immersion, I've extended it to make it longer so I can add more about expression. Because we can do all this inner revolution work, but when we go to express it to another person or to bring it alive with another person, it's like, it's a whole different thing in our system. It's a whole different thing in our system. This new moon is asking us to see how the things that protect us may actually be the very things that keep us from the pleasure, the success, the intimacy, the contribution that we desire. In Medusa's myth, there are some people who believe that Athena actually helped Medusa by making her ugly and by giving her the ability to turn people into stone so that she wouldn't be violated again. So that's an interesting way to look at it, right? And who knows? Who knows which one is correct? I think you could make a case for both. And when I think about it from that perspective, sure. And also, like it could have been that. And also Medusa became very lonely. There's a cost to our expression being stifled. We think that by stifling it, we will be accepted. But what happens is we abandon ourselves, right? This is Mars Chiron. We abandon ourselves. And so people don't even know who they're accepting. And the more that you fully, authentically express yourself, the more you will invite those projections. Yeah, it's true. It's true. People attack the parts of them that feel threatened because they've abandoned those parts. What is the cost, though, of keeping that expression inside? For me, it was a lot of things, but people ask me, how did my endometriosis, my polycystic ovary syndrome, my excruciating pain with my periods get better when I quit my job? They're like, oh, stress. That's everyone. I was like, oh, well, yeah, it makes sense. You're less stressed. And I'm like, oh, honey, I don't know if you know, but being an entrepreneur is insanely stressful. Like, I am way more stressed than I was working as a pharmacist part-time. Way more stressed. But the stress is in devotion to something. It's expressive, it's creative. So it makes sense to me that the sacral, where we hold our sexual and creative energy, there were transformations there when I changed, right? We do all this work, all this healing work, like, okay, let me do herbs, which I did, of course. I've had all these issues there since I was like 14. So 20 years. We do all of these things except change our lives, you know? And I know it sounds so easy when we say it, and can we let it be a little bit easier than we think? It doesn't have to be a completely burning down of your life, but like one step, because this Sabian symbol for 26 degrees is really about resourcefulness. It's a Spaniard serenading his señorita. It says, on a practical level, this degree suggests that the harder a thing is worked for, the more it's valued and appreciated. It's a suggestion here that reality is self-created, or anything that becomes real and possessed only as the individual contributes to its creation and becomes a part of it. Gate 8, gate of contribution. Your greatest advantage lies in finding new and clever ways to use what you have to accomplish your goals. Exactly. Yeah. So, number one, containment and boundaries are what create innovation. So we often use them as excuses, but they're really the things that are allowing us to get creative, right? If you don't have money, you got to get creative. You don't have time, you got to get creative. This is the energy I got for this new moon. And the Queen of Wands is assertive. She's confident. She's not worried about offending people who will not get her no matter how hard she tries. She's here to cater to the people who are here for her. And the black cat here is also showing shadow work, projections, but also intuition. To trust that you will know who is here for you and who is not, and to build your life and your expression for yourself in service of the people who need your voice, not the people who are going to project or hate you, or because they're going to be there. They're going to be there. The obstacle I got was the sun. Not feeling like we deserve success, not feeling like we deserve, like, this is a really interesting thing, you guys. I do a lot of work on the nervous system, and I didn't talk about it a lot today, but I'm going to be doing videos more about this because it's really important. I work with somatics in a really deep way. So a lot of times people's feelings, somatic sensations in their body around success is not easy. We think mentally, of course I want success. Who doesn't want success? But our bodies, there's something, because success means something's got to change. I've got to rebel, right? As Richard Rudd says, I've got to go against something, and that's scary. And there's something here around, like, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve to be successful. I don't deserve to take up space. This new moon is asking for you to give yourself permission to rewrite an old story. You have something to say, you have a way of saying it that is necessary for this world. Do not let this system, this structured system, control obsessed world tame your inner feminine. All of us have the inner feminine. And when you become authentic, you become a mirror to what people do not feel comfortable sitting with. That is not your job. It is your job to recognize and discern when something is actually true or something it's not yours. There's so much I wanted to talk about with shadow work, but maybe I'll make that its own video. Individuality is disruptive, right? And real style is disruptive. Authentic embodied expression is disruptive. So people will try to police it. They're going to try to shame it. They're going to try to question it. They're going to try to demand that you show proof that you know this and the facts for it. They're going to try to reduce it. They're going to try to reduce you to acceptable categories. But if you don't risk all of those things, then you risk having mediocrity in your life to alleviate other people's discomfort with their lives. Thanks so much for being here. I'm not doing one-on-one readings right now. I do have a wait list though. I have a wait list for Inner Revolution Immersion. I also have a wait list for Creative Rewilding, some other things as well on there, Mapping the Shadow, some workshops that I've done in the past that are filled with so much information and wisdom that I've weaved through these frameworks and my own life, my own experiences. Yeah, let's just take a breath together. I love Taurus energy. It makes me so sad that I hated it for so long when I was younger, my first few years in astrology, because it's just so good. It's so good. It's so rich and it's so beautiful. And let's rest in that beauty. We'll see you next time.